Hey, fellowship. So I'm just in a park here in Jerusalem today. Tehila's mother had to go through a surgery, so we're just in Jerusalem now waiting for the results. And so, of course, your prayers would be very much appreciated. But I was looking through the Parsha this week, and one of the methodologies that the sages of Israel teach us is that you should look at the beginning of the Torah portion and at the end of the Torah portion. And somehow those two things are interconnected. And we look at the beginning of the Torah portion and we have this spiritual hero, this zealous man Pinchas, who just at a moment's notice, almost instinctually, is just enraged, inspired, zealous for God, and takes action into his own hands. Moses doesn't do anything, Joshua doesn't do anything, no one does anything, and he murders, kills Zimri, one of the heads of the tribes of Simeon. And this week's portion, we see that he's awarded the covenant of peace and the priesthood for this incredible act. And there's a lot of questions about that. I mean, on one hand, without going into the morality of it, it seems as though the spiritual hero is the person that's spontaneous, is the person that's filled with the Spirit of God, that's ready to take faith and put it into action, that's just elevated by the moment. And it's almost like that's how we idealize a spiritual living. But then at the end of the Torah portion, we see something really remarkable. Pinchas doesn't lead the nation. Joshua does. And it's like this amazing climactic moment where Moses is told, you're going to die. And Moses is like, listen, we need a leader. Don't leave the Jewish people alone. And they choose a leader. And then you're wondering, like, okay, what's the message that's going to be given forth now to the people of Israel for all times? What is the message of this new leader? What's the message to this new leader? What's going to be carried on for generation to generation? And then the verse says, Et hakeves ha'echad ta'aseh baboker, ve'et hakeves hasheni ta'aseh ben ha'arbaim. And the first lamb you shall do in the morning, and the second lamb you shall do at night. And the sages of Israel, there's an argument, what's the most important verse in all of the Torah? And one of the opinions is that verse is the most important verse, not the Shema, not love your neighbor as yourself, but one lamb you do in the morning, and one lamb you shall do in the evening. That's the most important verse. And I think if you contrast that with the spiritual spontaneity and zealousness of Pinchas, and the fact that Pinchas doesn't get the leadership, but Joshua does. And the first message to Joshua is consistency, persistence, stability, loyalty, every day in the morning, every day in the evening. Joshua, the Midrash tells us, what did they do throughout their times in the desert? So Moses would be giving over his Torah classes, and the heads of the tribes and the people that wanted to be judges and scholars and leaders would attend the class. And Joshua was there before everyone else, setting up the chairs, and he would leave after everyone else, cleaning up every day. He was the first one in class and the last one to leave. And then when it's time to elect a leader, it's not the spontaneous, zealous, inspirational moment, but it's the consistent leader that has faith and loyalty. Emunah in Hebrew is rooted in another word, which is ne'eman, which means loyal. That somehow biblical faith is less about professing a certain idea to be true, but more about being loyal to what you know is true. And that combination of Pinchas, which is the spontaneous moment, being filled with God's Spirit and taking that inspiration and turning it into action. Pinchas is the one that's commanded every morning, every evening. One lamb in the morning and one lamb in the evening. And it's that discipline and that perseverance and that consistency that actually creates the groundwork. I mean, Western civilization has almost forgotten. It's like we idealize so much the moment of inspiration and the great music concert and the moments where we feel connected. But the Torah is really pointing us that if you want those moments of connectivity and you want those moments of inspiration, and when you're put to the test, you want to make sure that in those moments of truth, you act properly. The way to doing that is one lamb in the morning and one lamb in the evening. Discipline, habits, persistence, ritual, and building a life based on discipline and habits will create the groundwork for the next generation that's going into Israel when the time comes for them to go out to war, when the time comes for them to act in faith. The loyalty that they've committed to, their faith in loyalty, their emunah with ne'emanut, that together is what creates the groundwork for an amazing generation. And that's why Joshua was chosen to lead the nation as an example, because the nation didn't need, a zealous, inspirational leader. What they needed was a personal example of when the time came, Joshua came in with a good report, because every day he'd been practicing. Every day he was persistent. Every day he had discipline. Every day he did what was right. And training yourself to do what's right over and over again, aligning yourself over and over again, doing tshuva over and over again. Just like a repetition builds your physical muscles when you lift up a weight, so too spiritual repetitions of that consistency build up your character. They build up a loyalty, a ne'emanut to your faith, and it strengthens you spiritually. And so I just bless everyone that we all have faith and loyalty, because times are not always easy. Tehila is right now in the hospital visiting her mom, and we just don't know what the future holds. But hopefully in practicing with faith, consistency and persistence will give us the wood for the fire, to allow our fire to burn bright when it gets darkest. And so I bless all of us with the covenant of peace of Pinchas and the leadership of Joshua. So thank you very much for your prayers. They're very much appreciated. And I'll see you soon. I'm coming to the United States, and so is Tehila. And I would love to see as many of you as possible. But we'll be in touch. Shalom.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Gimpel. A lot of people want to know exactly what the Land of Israel Fellowship is and what members receive when they join. So let me explain. The Land of Israel Fellowship is a global online community with hundreds of members from over 40 countries around the world. They're live sessions and gatherings that create a direct personal connection to the Land of Israel and to lovers of Israel from around the world. There's no online gathering that I'm familiar with that is connected to the Land of Israel, that unites and brings together such a diverse group of people, backgrounds, and nationalities. It feels like prophecy. It feels like something we need in these times, like a window in to a better future on the horizon. There's a divine unity we experience every week in our fellowship broadcast. We heard these amazing teachings from an authentic Hebrew and Israel perspective, and our jaws drop. Not only because they ring so true and are such a blessing, because they are so consistent with what we believe. These Sunday morning gatherings are nothing less than a house of prayer for all nations. Cindy Lowe, the United States of America. The Land of Israel Fellowship is an amazing resource for learning Torah, the Bible, and the prophets, unfiltered and uncensored, directly from the Land of Israel. We've been studying Torah for almost 20 years, but we feel we are stepping into it more than ever and seeing new depth and dimensions to Scripture. We're encouraged more and more every week. Callan Ardell, USA. Members receive access to all the archives in the library of teachings on every portion of the Torah, the biblical feast, Hebrew prayer, prophecy, sessions on the ancient wisdom of the prophets of Israel, to help us navigate through these turbulent times. These sessions are so rich. I re-listen to each, and truly each session is the best one yet. Tehila is a tremendous asset, and the teachings Ari shares are so rich. I've read the Bible so many times, and I've known the things you are teaching. The Hebrew understanding is what Christians have missed for centuries. Sister Georgian from Germany. The Land of Israel Fellowship is truly unique because it's built upon personal relationships with the teachers of the fellowship, myself, Rabbi Ari Abramowitz, and Tehila Gimpel. Every member has direct access to the staff 24/6 via email or direct WhatsApp to ask questions, to comment, to connect directly to all the teachers. And over the last years, we've connected to some of the most beautiful people on the planet. So if you want to find out more and join the Land of Israel Fellowship, you can click on the link below. And if you want to try it out for just a month, you can email fellowship@thelandofisrael.com and we'll hook you up. I hope to see you. Shalom from the mountains of Judea.